Hey everybody, on today's John's Briefs, I'm here with Terry from Firearms Legal Protection again. We have a comment that somebody made on a video out of Utah, officer involved incident. And I asked in that one, hey, would you step in as a bystander and help an officer in need? And somebody said, heck no, man, that guy will sue the heck out of me and I'll be liable for it. So I have Terry here. Let's talk about it. Today's video is brought to us by the generosity of Firearms Legal Protection. Firearms Legal Protection is a legal defense program for lawful gun owners. You win the fight and they will help you win the fight after the fight for the rest of your life. There's a link in the description for a coupon code for a discount for all active self-protection watchers. Terry, thanks again for giving us your knowledge, my friend. I know how much you charge for this as a professional, and so I appreciate you giving it to us. And thank you to the team from Firearms Legal Protection. Guys, they give a discount to active self-protection members. Go down in the link. You can, as an ASP fan, get a discount on Firearms Legal Protection. They're who I use to protect myself for the fight after the fight. So let's talk about this one. Officer decides to take this guy into custody after he makes this motion, and then goes for the officer's gun, gets away from the officer, and dude with burners catches him, dumps him on his butt. Take him into custody, get him hooked up. Great, everybody's okay. But a commenter said in particular, I'd never do that because of the liability issues, because that guy can sue me if I hurt him. What do you think of that argument?
You know, the interesting thing is anybody can sue anybody for anything. I can sue you for wearing a green shirt. I would never sue you for wearing a green shirt. Being a Michigan State Spartan, you know, we love green. But I could sue you for wearing a green shirt.
Sure.
The question is it winnable?
Right.
Okay. And in this particular case, you have to really think about this. Can you imagine a guy coming to the witness stand saying, okay, I was committing a crazy act. You know, I did like this. I tried to take a cop's gun. He tried to arrest me. I ran away, and some guy tried to help the cops from me fleeing from a cop.
Right.
And he threw me down, and I got hurt. I'd love to see a case like that.
Yeah.
I really would, because the first thing I would do is find out, could we countersue this person? Okay. Does this person have any money? In some states, and I can't think off the top of my head which one, but in some states, if you're helping an officer, there is no liability. Does this fall under the Good Samaritan law per se? Even though, you know, you're trying to help someone from a health perspective and they get hurt. There are some states that have Good Samaritan laws that prevent these type of things from happening. So,
and you could say, wait a minute, acting in the stead of helping a police officer in the performance of their duties is the act of a Good Samaritan.
Absolutely.
And therefore, injury caused while acting under the guise of a Good Samaritan is not illegal and doesn't accrue liability.
Correct. And let's look at this. It's not like the gentleman, and by the way, if we ever find out who he is, I think he should be on WWE. That was an unbelievable takedown.
Or at least get maybe an NFL tryout.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, dude had good closing speed.
Oh yeah, he was great. But if you think about that, you know, what he did, it wasn't like the guy was in the car, walked up to this guy, and just threw him to the ground.
Right.
The person, and I'm talking about the perpetrator, this guy's committing a felony.
Yeah, trying to take a cop's gun.
That's a felony in, I'd say, every state. So you try to take a cop's gun, then you're fleeing from the cops. Now you put yourself in this type, you being the perpetrator, has put himself in this type of position. This guy is not coming to the stand with what we call clean hands.
Yeah, not at all.
So I'd love to see someone bring a suit like this, because I believe in summary judgment, this thing would be thrown out so quick it'd be ridiculous.
Well, and so I think the general from, whether criminal or civil, if you are coming to the aid of a police officer in need, you're going to get probably the widest latitude from the courts. And you're not, I mean, if you do something crazy unreasonable, well, then you're going to be liable for that crazy unreasonableness.
Well, yeah, like shooting at a fleeing felon saying, hey, I was only helping the cops.
Right.
That's not an acceptable time to say, I was helping and this is what I did. However, if a guy is running and you do something like this gentleman did, yes. And what's the difference? One is the use of lethal force, and one is the use of non-lethal force.
Ordinary force makes a huge difference.
It does.
So let's talk generally just a minute about helping a police officer, okay? I know there's at least one state where if an officer requests your help, you are legally obligated to provide it. But for the most part, you're not obligated to help.
Correct.
From a legal perspective. Now we can talk about a moral perspective as well. But I don't know the answer to this one, Terry. If I do come to the aid of an officer, say I do it right. I ask the officer, do you need help? Some guy's beating his head in on the concrete. Yes, I need help. Okay, I go help him.
Yes.
Am I covered from a liability perspective as in that moment a servant of that officer?
Great question. One could argue, and again, this is kind of a wide argument. You can argue that I've deputized you at that point.
Because you've said, officer has said, help me.
Help me. I need help. If an officer has asked you to do something and you do it, I would say that realistically you are putting yourself, I don't want to say in the shoes of the officer, but you are getting the immunities that an officer would have working for, let's say, the department, the city, the county, whatever, because the officer has now asked for your help. Now, if you just jump in and do it, that's something different. If a guy is robbing someone and, well, I don't want to use rob, let's say he snatched a purse. Okay. And you've tackled the guy. It's happened right in front of you because in most states, if a felony is committed in front of you, you can stop someone from doing something.
Sure, absolutely.
You can stop them. Some states allow that with misdemeanors. Again, check your local states to find out which ones. But if the police are there and the police said, hey, can you help me? I believe you are gathering or falling under the immunities that they share because they've asked you to do something.
So it sounds like the difference is if I stop a crime, police aren't there yet, I'm holding a guy, I'm not going to have that because nobody asked me to do that. I don't necessarily have that obligation.
Correct.
But if I do say, officer, do you need help? Yes, the officer says, or somehow articulates yes, he nods at me or whatever, and I go in to help, now the officer has requested my help, and that gives me more protection than if I just do it on my own.
Correct, because if someone comes after you, you can say, I didn't jump in myself, Officer John asked me to help.
And therefore I did, because I felt a moral obligation to help this officer.
Absolutely. And here's the other part. Why wouldn't you help an officer?
I think you have a moral obligation.
Well, you don't have a legal one for sure, but moral, yeah, I would agree with that because, again, these are the people that are out here protecting us.
Right.
And I would feel really bad if an officer said, can you help me? And I'm like, no, you're on your own. And that fleeing felon or whatever whatever they asked me to do, I didn't do, and it resulted in someone else getting hurt or potentially killed.
Yeah.
I'd feel horrible.
Well, and in my opinion, I said this on the channel not long ago, even if you don't believe that helping an officer is a moral good, and you say, wait a minute, the perp could be in the right, well, listen, if they're fighting with a cop, it's not going to go well for them. Even if they end up winning that fight, the dude's Motorola, he's going to have a lot of people on the way.
Oh, yeah.
And that person who's just hurt a cop is going to get hurt real bad. So even if you don't believe that it's a moral good to help the officer, help him get that guy into custody because that's the best way for him not to get hurt. And then let the lawyers fight out later what else was going on.
You're never going to win on the street with the police. And I tell my clients this all the time. I just don't mean fighting with them.
Right.
You're pulled over. That's not the time to argue with the police officer, whether you ran a red light, a stop sign, whatever. Let it get to court.
Right.
Because on the streets, that's the cop's turf. The courtroom, that's your lawyer's turf.
There you go. So if you step in to help, probably if your help is requested, you have a whole lot better legal standing than if it wasn't. And if you're acting in the stead of helping an officer versus trying to enforce the law yourself. So, man, good stuff. Be careful and be safe, everyone. And Terry, thank you. And thanks to Firearms Legal Protection for the help.
Thank you.